Hello and welcome to the Big Seven Stories on Wells Television. I am Bolanle Oduekun-Ayoola. Now, every week here, we count down the 7 stories that everyone is talking about. From the news that shakes the nation to the events that are shaping our world. Just know that if it made the headlines, then it's right here on the Big Seven Stories. I'll pause and ask you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel right here. Just look down and click on the subscribe button right there. Also, don't forget to click on the bell right beside it. It's the notification bell to help you know whenever our videos are out. If you enjoy our videos, just take this one moment to subscribe. Good. Now let's get into the Big Seven. On our first story on the Big Seven, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, announced on the 12th of October 2025 that it was instituting a nationwide 2-week warning strike, which was set to begin from midnight on Monday 13th October in all its branches across Nigerian public universities. So basically they were going to withdraw services. Now, this industrial action, what we also call strike action, did not just come out of the blues. ASUU had before that issued a 14-day ultimatum to the federal government over unresolved issues that it said had festered for years. Among ASUU's grievances are the non-finalization and signing of the renegotiated 2009 federal government ASUU agreement that they had with late President Yar'Adua. Also, unreleased salary and promotion arrears for lecturers, withheld third-party deductions, and what the union described as chronic underfunding and neglect of public universities. Apparently, early this month, that's early October, ASUU had reported that negotiations had stalled and that the government's response remained unsatisfactory. They also accused the government of presenting inconsistent documents, delaying implementation, and failing to deliver on past commitments. And so when the 14-day ultimatum expired with no tangible progress made, ASUU went ahead with the warning strike. Now, on the very same day that the strike started, the government, through the Minister of Education, Dr. Maruf Tunji-Alausa, issued a circular directing all vice-chancellors of federal universities to enforce the no work, no pay policy against academic staff who are participating in the strike. This circular stated that in line with extant provisions of labor laws, the federal government reiterates its position on the enforcement of the no work, no pay policy in respect of any employee who fails to discharge his or her official duties during the period of strike action. Aside that, the minister also instructed that roll calls and physical head counts of academic staff be carried out. The results, also should be submitted to the National Universities Commission, that's the NUC, within 7 days for review. He also emphasized that the government remains open to dialogue, but is equally determined to enforce existing laws. On its part, the ASUU leadership dismissed the threat, arguing that, and this is what they said, their words, they said, we don't respond to threats and nobody can threaten us. They indicated that, academic unions such as CONUA, that's the Congress of University Academics, and NAFDAC, the National Association of Medical and Dental Academics, were united behind the action. Don't forget that earlier on, CONUA, NAFDAC had said, they were also not, they were not a part of the strike action. But by October 17, 2025, the Senate, the Nigerian Senate, intervened through its Committee on Labor and Tertiary Institutions, TETFund. They met with ASUU leadership. They scheduled follow-up sessions with the Ministry of Education as well as the NUC. The warning strike remains in force till today across most public universities. The government still saying that dialogue remains open, but still insisting on the enforcement of no work, no pay. Don't forget that ASUU has a long history of strikes and industrial disputes, which are primarily centered on issues like university funding, lecturer welfare, salary arrears, autonomy of institution, and so on and so forth. Basically, as I said earlier, what ASUU is actually asking for is the finalization and signing of the renegotiated 2009 federal government ASUU agreement, the payment of withheld salaries that stemmed from their earlier 3.5 month, 3 month strike, actually 4 month strike, where the government also instituted the no work, no pay, rule. They're also asking for the outstanding salary arrears of 25 to 35%, which the union claims was agreed on. They're also asking for payment of promotion arrears that are spanning several years. They're also asking for release of withheld third-party deductions like union dues, cooperative contributions, and so on for lecturers. They're also asking for sustainable funding and the revitalization of the university system. They are maintaining that this sector is in a critical condition. All of this, as we're saying, they have been asking for years. They're saying that the federal government doesn't respond speedily. Their response is usually very slow and at the end inconclusive. Students are at home due to the ASUU strike now, and parents are also suffering the brunt. As they say, when two elephants fight, the grass suffers. We'll continue to monitor this issue on the Big Seven Stories. Our second story on the Big Seven Stories takes us to the Senate in conjunction with INEC. Now, on the 16th of October 2025, the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria gave its resounding approval to the nomination of Professor Joash Ojo Amukwiton, SAN, as chairman of INEC, that's the Independent National Electoral Commission, following a screening exercise that lasted about 3 hours. Don't forget that Professor Amukwiton was nominated by President Bola Tinubu under the constitutional provision of Section 154, subsection 1, for the appointment of an INEC chairman, and his CV was forwarded to the Senate for consideration. Now, during the hearing, several senators grilled Professor Amukwiton on a range of issues like the integrity of previous elections, his own professional history, and possible ties to the legal team of President Bola Tinubu. And he explicitly stated that he did not act as legal counsel for the APC during the 2023 presidential election petition tribunal up to the Supreme Court, and he pointed out the law, and these reports, he also said, were publicly available to check this. He also made some commitments to improving the electoral process. He talked about ensuring better logistics, introducing clones, that's duplicate serial numbering or tracking mechanism for election materials. He also talked about launching a more aggressive voter education campaign so that in future elections, the losers will congratulate the winners, in his words. So now the Senate has confirmed him, and as of today, with Professor Amukwiton's confirmation secured, attention now is shifting to his next move. How will he perform in the role? This is due to the schedule of the upcoming elections, most especially the governorship elections in Anambra State in November. So the question is, can he deliver a free and fair election? More importantly, can he deliver on his pledges? On our third story on the Big Seven Stories for today, NAFDAC, that's the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, is insisting on clinical trials before full approval of herbal medicines. Now, in Nigeria, herbal medicines and traditional remedies enjoy widespread use and cultural acceptance, but the regulatory regime is tightening. This is because NAFDAC has formally stated that the herbal medicines will not receive full approval without undergoing proper clinical trials to show both their safety and their efficacy. The Director General of NAFDAC, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, explained in a statement on October 12, 2025, that while many herbal products have been listed and can be marketed for a 2-year provisional period following toxicology or safety assessments, she said they cannot be granted full registration. Full registration apparently is valid for 5 years. So she's saying they cannot be granted full registration unless they pass efficacy tests via clinical trials. In practical terms, NAFDAC is now using a 2-tier system for herbal medicines. First, a listing approval. That's after laboratory evaluations for safety. But second, full registration only after evidence from clinical trials that establish the efficacy and determine safe dosage and effect. So that means that if on the herbal medicine, or if the makers say that if you take 2 teaspoons 3 times daily, it's going to cure your stomach pain, NAFDAC is going to look into doing clinical trials and will only give full registration after they can find evidence that it's actually effective and that the dosage is also safe. The DG emphasized, and this is her words, she said, if you have a herbal medicine that you cannot prove scientifically the extent to which it works, then it cannot be fully registered by NAFDAC. The agency, also flagged major hurdles. They said many practitioners of herbal medicines lack the resources to conduct clinical trials because they are costly. Professor Adeyeye said there are thousands of herbal products in their database that are yet to go through clinical trials. And to help bridge this gap, NAFDAC is partnering with the Nigerian Natural Medicine Development Agency, NNMDA, to select promising herbal products for clinical trials. Now, the insistence on clinical trials is due to concerns about safety. Even though a product is natural, the fact that a product is marketed as natural does not automatically mean that it is safe. And the DG pointed out the risk of improper dosage, unknown toxic components, and potential harm to organs like the liver and the kidney. We all know that herbal medicine forms a large part of Nigeria's healthcare landscape. And by doing this, by raising the evidentiary bar, NAFDAC is trying to align practice with best global standards. It's a good one because this move could drive innovation in local herbal therapeutics if there is funding and technical capacity. Moving on to our next story on the Big 7 story. In significant economic updates, Nigeria's headline inflation rate fell to 18.02% year-on-year in September 2025, marking the 6th straight month of decline. This latest reading is down from 20.12% in August of 2025. Now, the drop in inflation is said to be due to easing food price pressures. Food inflation, which is the biggest component of household consumption, fell to 16.87% in September, down from 21.87% in August. The decline came amidst improved supply conditions and seasonal harvest. Now, the easing of inflation is coming after a period of elevated price growth, which was driven by multiple policy shocks, that's including the removal of fuel subsidy, the Naira devaluation, and some other reforms under the administration of President Bola Tinubu. With inflation now under 20% for the first time in many years, this is the first time in over 3 years that Nigeria's inflation has dropped this low. The economy on paper appears to be entering a disinflation phase. Now, the rate, it now sits closer to the long-term target of the Central Bank of Nigeria of around 9%, although, there's still a sizable gap when you look at 9% to 18%. But the broader implications are noteworthy. For households, they say that a slowdown in inflation offers some relief to cost of living pressures, especially when food and other essential prices rise more slowly. The federal government and the central bank, for them, this trend may provide greater policy space to support growth and potentially reduce interest rates further, given also that price pressures are moderating. Indeed, the CBN cut its benchmark lending rate to 27% earlier in the year, citing the favorable inflation trajectory. And as of today, the downward trend is intact, but the challenge, shifts to sustaining the momentum and translating the falling inflation into improved purchasing power and stronger economic growth for Nigerians. Moving on to our next story on the Big 7 stories for today. In recent days, the ruling party in Nigeria, that's the All Progressives Congress, has seen a notable surge in high-profile defections from opposition parties. This has signaled a potential realignment of power ahead of the 2027 general elections. And at the heart of the wave are two governors and a prominent national figure. First, on October 14th, the governor of Enugu State, Peter Mbah, formerly of the People's Democratic Party, announced his defection to the APC. He was not alone because he was then accompanied by members of his State Executive Council and local government leadership. Next, the governor of Bayelsa State, Doye Diri, followed suit, resigning from the PDP and preparing to declare his allegiance to the APC as part of a coordinated defection with his fellow state lawmakers. Meanwhile, also, we heard that former senator and media entrepreneur Ben Murray Bruce officially joined the APC as well on the 15th of October 2025. He cited his belief in the leadership of President Bola Tinubu and the party's reform agenda. These defections are being interpreted in different ways. Supporters of the APC are viewing them as endorsement of the party's performance and governance agenda. But critics are arguing that these defections reflect weakening opposition structures, and they also raise concerns about the vibrancy of the multi-party democracy. These shifts are occurring at both state, level, or Senate, legislative level, local government levels, and so on and so forth. Now, one major thing that many Nigerians have talked about this week is the fact that for the governors who defected, there was a recurring theme. They kept saying that it's to draw further federal power to their states, meaning that at the federal level, the government will be able to work better with them. But people are then asking, does this mean that they're saying that the federal government is showing favoritism towards only governors in their states? There's so many questions ahead of 2027. Some of the key questions are, will these defections translate into a significantly changed political map ahead of 2027? Will the opposition forces forge new identities or alliances to respond? And most importantly, will Nigerians see tangible governance benefits from this shifting political terrain? Or simply just, is all of this just more political maneuvering? These are the questions that are on the minds of Nigerians, and very sure that in the following days, these questions will be answered. Let's move on to our next story on the Big 7 stories for today. In Kenya, Raila Odinga, a towering Kenyan opposition figure, has died at the age of 80. On Wednesday, 15th October 2025, while in Kochi, Kerala, India, where he was receiving medical treatment, Odinga collapsed during his morning work. He suffered a cardiac arrest and was pronounced dead at Devamatha Hospital. His passing marks the end of a political life that spanned decades. He was born on January 7, 1945 in Maseno, Kenya. Odinga was the son of Jaramogi Odinga, a key figure in Kenya's independence movement. And after long years in the political trenches, from detention under the one-party era to becoming the nation's prime minister between 2008 to 2013, and running for the presidency 5 times, that's 1997, 2007, 2013, 2017, and 2022, Odinga built his reputation as a relentless voice for democracy, reform, and the rights of the marginalized. News of his death triggered immediate outpouring of grief and mass mobilization across Kenya. Thousands converged at Nairobi's Jomo Kenyatta International Airport on 16th of October to receive his body, briefly halting operations as the crowd surged. A public viewing scheduled at the stadium in Nairobi saw chaos, where we saw videos and footages of security forces firing shots and using tear gas after crowds breached the barriers. This resulted in at least 2 deaths and more than 160 injuries in the stampede. President William Ruto announced a 7-day national mourning period. He declared a state funeral and ordered flags to fly at half-mast, recognizing Odinga as a giant of democracy. Odinga will be buried in his hometown on Sunday. And our last story on the Big 7 stories, it's sports. The Super Eagles of Nigeria have sealed an important milestone. They have risen into the top 5 national teams in Africa. This is according to the latest FIFA Men's World Rankings. Initially, they had hovered around the middle of Africa's elite football countries park in recent years, but this ascent is marking a meaningful boost for the team's continental standing. For some context, now, the Super Eagles had been ranked 44th in the world and 5th in Africa in July 2025, behind the likes of Morocco, Senegal, Egypt, and Algeria. Now, in prior months, the Super Eagles slipped further, and the global rankings had been a cause of concern. But now, thanks to improved results in competitive fixtures and more consistent performances, the team has now edged upward in the continental pecking order. The implication of this rise, there are plenty. Firstly, being in Africa's top 5 means that the Super Eagles will regain greater respect, influence, and psychological advantage when facing other African teams in the qualifiers, in tournaments or friendlies. Secondly, it also helps in FIFA seedings, the draws and perceptions about the quality of Nigeria's football program, which in turn may then have knock-off effects for sponsorship, player recruitment, and national morale. Thirdly, also for the fans and the national football ecosystem, this is a sign that a turnaround may be underway, that Nigeria, when it comes to sports, football especially, may rise again, reclaiming the status that it held decades ago as one of Africa's football powerhouses. But it's not all smooth sailing, because being top 5 is one thing, and staying there or moving even higher, as people would expect, is another. The Super Eagles will then now need to build on this momentum, winning high-stake matches, beating fellow top teams, avoiding major slip-ups in qualification pathways, and even ensuring that the football structure supports sustained performance. Also, with many African teams now investing heavily in youth development, in infrastructure and coaching, Nigeria cannot afford to be complacent. As of today, the Super Eagles' rise into Africa's top 5 is official, but the work for cementing this position is just beginning. Now, the next major benchmark will include performance in major qualifiers such as the 2026 FIFA World Cup and the 2026 AFCON, and how the team matches up against both African rivals and international opposition. And that's how the week looked. 7 big stories, 1 clear picture. Thank you so much for watching the Big 7 Stories on Wells Television. I am Bolanle Oduekun-Ayoola. Always remember that the news doesn't end when the bulletin does. So stay curious, stay informed, and I'll see you next week with another Big 7. God bless you.